So after leaving Rincon de la Vieja volcano area, we headed for the coast and didn't want to go to the big touristic sites, Tamarindo, for example, which people fly into Liberia, and then they take a shuttle or a bus to Tamarindo. But just at the description sounded way too tourist. Anyway, so we go to Brasilito, and just a word of caution, man, you show up here and it's a little bit blown out. You don't see any gringos. You look around and it just doesn't feel quite right. I mean, I got to keep an open mind. So with Melissa, my wife, and we were kind of going around and around about, no, we need not to stay here. This is too dangerous. So this is a guy that comes up to us and he says, well, you just need to leave a few dollars with somebody and they'll watch your car. Well, you know, you want to be trusting and you want to be open-minded and everything. And Melissa, she just, I think her sense of safety was much higher than mine's. And eventually I rescinded to her desires or wishes, and I think it was the right thing to do. I mean, this guy's talking about it. The woman that comes up to collect some money, she looked kind of shady. While we're talking to him, I don't get it on camera, but some other guy shows up, no sandals, no shirt, and he's really looking in the back of the window, and you get this, I would say, a real uncomfortable feeling. So I go to one of the local stores and just say, hey, is it a problem to leave your car parked here? Is it safe? And I don't know, just the way they nodded didn't give me a 100% confident feeling. So anyway, to my wife's credit, I think it was the right thing to pack it in. And not very far from here is Playa Flamingo, which is really a beautiful beach. It's wide open, probably some of the best sand that we've seen. It's a beach that they maintain and keep clean, and there's a whole bunch of hotels that are kind of a distance away, which is good because you aren't going to have a whole lot of people. And I think what I liked about the Playa Flamingo is you could park your car next to the road, which is next to the beach, and sort of keep an eye on it, and there's your stuff and there's your car. So that was pretty good. So again, we're just sort of this is still Playa Brasilito, the first beach we came to. And again, see, there's nobody around. It's a little bit blown, and I think it was the right idea to get out of here and go to that other beach, and that's what we did. And I mean, it's probably like maybe 5-6 minutes away, and it feels completely different. I mean, there's people everywhere. It's clean. There are what I would say a lot more folks around. A lot more folks who have parked their cars and are at the beach, and it's a much more chilled. You can tell that the beach is taken care of because it's much cleaner. I did run into some. They're like real small jellyfish, and so you get a lot of these little. And then that's with a swim shirt on. So word of caution, depending on the time of the year, you may or may not acquire that. So we didn't want to spend a whole lot of time there. Looking at those hotels that were just across the street was more touristic than what we wanted, and so we had our plan was to go to Playa Samara or Samara, depending on how you pronounce it. Not that far away. I think it's maybe 30, 40 minutes down the Nicoya Peninsula. Anyway, that's where Melissa had made reservations for the night, and so this would kind of give you a bit of an idea of what the roads are like driving. I mean, these are paved. These are pretty good. This is not the norm, and this is not the standards. There are some major roads that are paved like this. There is no shoulder, but a lot of them, and especially in the interior, they're extremely blown out. There's potholes everywhere. And it's drive at your own risk, and she feels a little bit on the risky side, that's for sure. In some places you can only get one car through at a time. So, but anyway, this portion of the video is to kind of give you a little bit of idea of what the driving is like. Something that I noticed that was quite different, and I liked in Costa Rica, is you can go to one location. Let's say you go to a little pueblo, and then you decide you're going to go to another little pueblo. Well, in between those two towns is all of this green space. Unlike the US or Canada, where it's developed and there's development all up and down the highway. Here you have concentrations of development, and then you've got all of this wide open green area, which is absolutely refreshing. So this is Playa Samara. This is where we stayed for a couple nights, and they don't maintain the beach as much in that they don't have people coming up and picking up all the debris after a storm or something. But it's not a bad beach. It's a little bit coarser, a little bit more gravelly, not exactly real fine, super great sand or anything. But the hotel did have a couple of boogie boards. It doesn't have a real bad undertow or riptides at this beach. And a word of caution, certain beaches, and they're not necessarily all marked, have some extremely strong undertows and riptides that you can get yourself, if you're not familiar with riptides, quickly into trouble. So I think this was the first real time that we sort of relaxed and at the beach and sort of made a little bit of a home base. I think we would have planned on staying here a little longer, but some local Ticos moved into the room next door to us, and when they move in, man, they really move in. They got the kid, they've got 2 or 3 or 4 other family members, and they sit on, they hoop it up a lot outside, and it was a lot more noise than what we wanted, so we left the second day. But anyway, this is a nice shot of the beach, and it shows you kind of, it's pretty desolate. I mean, it's great to get these beaches, and there's just not a whole lot of people around, which is great. This is a little bit, this is a little island, not that far away. I think it's about a mile or so away, and I kept trying to swim to it, and didn't want to take the big chance, so I would always return. But it was sort of a nice little goal. But here again, you can kind of see this is probably low tide, and they're pretty sweet little beaches, and a lot of the smaller, lesser known beaches are kind of like this, where they're open, not a lot of folks. You can plant yourself, and it's chilled. It's pretty nice. Now Samara is a small town. The place that we stayed at is just a little bit outside of the main town, which is nice, so you're not boom right where all the hotels and restaurants and people are. So we're further out of town a little ways. I think the downtown is about a 20-minute beach walk, which is a real easy, real doable, and highly recommended to stay a little bit further out of town. I will say this, that as we made our way out of town, the roads get really blown, and they're pretty rough, and you're going to see some real poverty also. Seems for whatever reason that people somehow settled close to the beach, whether land was real cheap or whether everybody fished and made their subsistence off the ocean. I don't know, but anyway, there's like right across the street from this hotel and we stayed at the Phoenix. I can't necessarily say I would recommend it. I think it was just fine. If you've got the right guests, it's probably great, but it can be pretty noisy because of the construction, and it doesn't have AC, so you can't kind of block them out. But anyway, here we are. We're putzing around. I think the boys were doing boogie boarding, and I think this particular day the waves weren't real big. Ivan, my middle son, got a hold of the hotel had these hand reels where you stand on the beach and you cast from shore. And I mean, didn't catch anything, but they were real nice about getting the bait, getting the line, and having their yard guy kind of help get it all set up and show them the technique on how to fish from the shore. So that was fun for them. I guess it would have been more fun had they caught something. So from the main beach, I go ahead and I take a nice little hike, and it doesn't take long, and you're really going to be in this complete remote, desolate, looks like primitive times area. I mean, it's pretty cool. This is the view looking back towards where the hotel is. So I've sort of walked, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes away, and this is where a freshwater stream sort of dumps into the ocean, and the tide comes in and the tide goes out, and it leaves all these little pools. But I can't say I saw a whole lot of great shellfish or sea life trapped inside of them. And then the ocean comes back in, and then it replenishes and gives these guys a break and maybe brings somebody else in. But anyway, they're always cool to kind of look at. I think what was nice about this portion of the hike is that there's nobody around, and there is a great compulsion to want to see what's around the corner. And I mean, it just continues and continues. Like every time I'd get around a little corner, like the one we're looking at, you would see another corner and you'd want to keep going. So not knowing what the tide conditions were like, I only was willing to go so far and then kind of turn back, and wasn't particularly prepared for it. But at any rate, it's some of these places you'll see little waterfalls coming off of the cliffs into the ocean, and they're kind of undeveloped and undiscovered, and that's something that you're going to notice in Costa Rica, that there is a lot of beaches, and there are the developed areas, and then there's all of this other area that's still pretty wild. I think the rule in Costa Rica is that all the ocean and the beaches are public. So even though hotels can be on the beach beach still remains public and to the people. And I think that's kind of a great idea for many obvious reasons. I suppose not so great if you own a hotel and you want to kind of control who's on your beach. You really can. So that's just the way it goes. Also, something else that I have noticed is that even the small Phoenix, the hotel that we stayed at, they all have security guards. 24 hours. They're there during the day and they're there during the night. During the day, they tend to take care of the landscaping, and at night they've got maybe one or two. They may switch off, but they have a security guard that basically walks around the property. Theft and breaking into cars is a common practice. These people are some of these people are real poor, and it's an easy target. And so, bottom line, don't leave anything visible in your car. So again, about 20, maybe 30 minutes away is the town, and we came into town to get something to eat for dinner. Most of the time you go into restaurants in Costa Rica, I would say you're overpaying and you're disappointed with the results and the food that you get. But this kind of a blown out small little pueblo, we just happened to be lucky, and I think it was called, let's see, it was on a second floor, something to do with upstairs patio or deck. And man, that restaurant had great food, real fresh, large American type of servings. And I'd have to say that even we stayed there in Costa Rica for a month, and that was probably one of the better places that we ate at, and it certainly has stuck in my mind. And this kind of gives you a little bit of idea of what the town looks like. I think these towns, again, they heavily cater to tourists. And anyway, eventually we found a little restaurant, and it was upstairs and nice and chilled, not a lot of people. And again, the food was great if you can find it, and I would make that a regular foray if I'm staying in this area. It was just, and I think even in terms of the cost was extremely reasonable. Most restaurants and food in Costa Rica are noticeably high. It's not cheap. It's expensive. It costs maybe close for a family of 5 to go out and eat, darn close to $100, a little bit more, and that's without anybody getting any drinks or sodas or anything. You do get used to drinking their tap water, because bottled water is quite expensive. So there's the meal, and there's the view from the restaurant.